He's been shot at. He's been sliced with a razor. He had a near-death experience after having surgery for being shot. They say he was dead for 7 minutes. Now he's an artist. It's quite a tale. His name is Willie. How you doing, Willie?
Hey, how you doing?
Willie with one L. Willie Harris, good morning to you. This is Red Palmer, and I'm glad you're taking this time to be with me over here at CJ Cannon's.
It is a pleasure. Thank you for having me, actually.
Okay, now, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Miami, Florida.
And I know you've had art shows, and your art is being appreciated by many people. But and that's how I found out about you. Saw you in some local newspapers, and you're going to have an art show around here again soon. But what I want to ask you today is, let's go back to your beginnings. Where were you born?
I was born in Miami, Florida.
And your grandfather had a junk shop, kind of like Sanford and Son, right?
Well,
Are you too young to remember Sanford and Son?
I remember Sanford and Son, but to be honest, Sanford and Son were doing a lot better than my grandfather. Sometimes we start living a self-fulfilled prophecy. I actually believe that. A lot of times when you're a young kid and an adult with influence over you says certain things, you take it as fact. And I was illiterate. You know, I remember being in the first grade and being an illiterate kid. I couldn't read, I couldn't write, I didn't know my colors. It wasn't until, my mom eventually moved us to Ohio that I actually started a teacher. Her name was Mrs. Lusick. I actually took the time. I had a speech impediment. I spoke with a lisp. And, I remember when my grandfather, because he used to beat me a lot. I mean, he would grab me and by my underwear, lift me up in the air and throw me across the room into walls, as though I was a paper airplane. And this is when I was 3. And I remember, when I was a kid, I had a speech impediment. And whenever he would come around, if I was having fun with my brothers or other relatives, he would come around, all of a sudden I became clumsy. I became, a stutterer. I mean, it just seemed as though when he came around, this presence, I just couldn't do anything right. So that's the kind of effect that his presence had on me growing up.
Wow. So what happened after that? I mean, did you two ever reconcile?
No, we never reconciled. Because I ended up growing up in Ohio, but we would always come back to Florida for the summers. But I remember probably when I was around 15 or 16, I was getting taller, I was getting bigger, and I think it was a mutual respect. He had more respect for me, because it was like raising a pit bull, and he wanted me to be mean, and he wanted me to be tough, and he definitely, caused me to be mean and tough growing up, and I think he respected that out of me.
Now, you end up on the streets, though, and you end up being, what would it be called? They say gangsta in the songs, the rap songs. Were you a gangsta?
I'm growing up.
You seem like such a mild-mannered artist now. You're a handsome young guy. You got a great smile. I think you have a kind heart, and yet you were a gangster. You're the second gangster I've run into recently, too.
Yeah.
You were a bully?
I wasn't a bully to only those who thought they were tougher or thought they were more gangster, but not someone who was meek or someone who was going to school and doing what they were supposed to do, or a kid who wasn't in that life. We never bothered them. But if it was another fellow so-called gangster, or if you thought you were tougher, or if you were a bully, then we were going to eliminate you or make sure that you weren't going to be bothering us.
Wow. So now you end up in a shootout, right?
But when I was coming up during this particular time, I had these words I exchanged with these guys, and I started fighting these guys, and one of them I had on the ground, and I was choking him, and I was thinking in my mind, that I was going to get up after I choked this guy out. I was going to choke the other one out, but what I didn't know was the other one had pulled out a gun, and he shot me twice. The first bullet hit me 2 inches above my heart and came out of the back of my shoulder. The other one hit me in my right hip, and the bullet lodged in my left hip. But as it traveled, it went through my stomach, it went through my appendix, it hit my small intestine. They had to take part of that out. It went through my bladder.
Okay, now what happens now? Do somebody call an ambulance, the cops? What happens now? You've been shot, they run off?
Yeah, they ran off. They left me for dead. I was actually unconscious at this point. And when I woke up, I was in the ambulance, so I'm not sure who called the ambulance or who did that. I just remember being in the ambulance. I remember going in and out of consciousness, and my knees were knocking together. I was sweating. My teeth were chattering as though I was in cold weather, but I couldn't stop my teeth from chattering. I was going through shock. I didn't know it.
Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Willie will tell us what happened, and he had a near-death experience. The doctors would tell him he died for 7 minutes, was it?
Yes, sir.
7 minutes. I'm broadcasting today from CJ Cannon's out of Vera's Municipal Airport Strip. Okay? Where the only thing they overlook is the airport strip. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I'm Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airwaves. Who loves you, baby? If you're wondering what the ambient noise is, I'm broadcasting from CJ Cannon's out at Vero's Municipal Airport Strip in Vero Beach, Florida. Great place to fly into. Stop at CJ Cannon's for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I'm Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airwaves. Talking with Wil Harris. Good morning, Willie.
Good morning, and breakfast was delicious.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, we had what did we have?
Eggs Benedict, potatoes, grits. I love grits. I'm a Southern boy.
Now, Willie is an artist, and he's starting to be a celebrated artist. But he was once, you might have called him a gangster. He definitely was a gang member. He ends up in an altercation, and he's been shot in the hip. It's gone through it went through your bladder, went through your stomach. He's also been shot in the arm, and he was left for dead, unconscious. To this day, we don't know who called the ambulance. Okay, so you're on your way to the hospital.
Yeah, I was in the ambulance. It seemed like the ambulance hit every bump that was in the road. I could feel every single thing, every movement. Like I said, my knees were banging together. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't control my body. My teeth were chattering. I couldn't control them. I was sweating. And what ended up happening when they finally got to the hospital, they weren't sure where the bullet had went. They thought it was maybe in my leg, and until a nurse came in and gave me a catheter. And when she gave me a catheter, it was filled with blood. And from there, they knew I had internal bleeding and that it was very serious, so they rushed me into the emergency. And while they were rushing me into the emergency, I just felt something come over me. I just felt I was dying. And I said to the anesthesiologist, I said to him as he was putting the mask over my face, I held his hand, I said, please don't let me die. And he said, you're not going to die. And he put the mask over my face. And from there, I remember almost immediately floating above my body and looking down at myself. And when I was floating above my body, I didn't feel any pain. There wasn't any pain. There wasn't any fear. I almost didn't recognize myself, but I knew it was me. I don't know how I knew it was me, but I remember looking at myself and seeming as though I was so weak and fragile. And before this, I have to let you know, I thought I was probably one of the toughest guys in my neighborhood. I woke up in an intensive care like in the blink of an eye, and I was in pain, excruciating pain. They were giving me shots of Demerol. I didn't know it was Demerol at the time, but I found out I was being given shots of Demerol for the pain. They had a tube going down my nose into my stomach. They had me hooked up to different breathing machine and other machines. They had IVs coming out of my arm. They had another tube right below my belly button coming out from under my belly button where I had staples. And there was a little ball, plastic ball, and it was draining. I found out later it was draining blood out of my stomach from the surgery. And, I was in bad shape. I was weak. I couldn't even ball my fist. And the surgeon was standing over me, and he was looking over me, and he was rubbing my arm in a very caring way. And I remember looking at him in his eyes, and he noticed that I had woke up, and he looked at me and said, you're a very lucky young man. You had died for 7 minutes.
Died for 7 minutes?
Yes, he said you had died for 7 minutes. In my mind, I thought it was only maybe a few seconds.
Wow. So did this experience change your life?
Oh, it changed my life profoundly. From there, I couldn't go back to looking at things and looking at life the way I had before. It was like night and day. It was like I had an epiphany. It was like it changed my paradigm, the way I viewed the world and the way I looked at the world, regardless of the way I grew up with my grandfather and all that anger I harbored and, everything I had inside that I felt as though the world owed me. I realized that I was a very fragile creature and that life was very fragile and precious. And I appreciated it more and I respected it a lot more. And I couldn't go back to, being in a gang. I couldn't go back to carrying guns. I couldn't picture myself ever pointing a gun at someone or shooting someone or anything like that after that.
Just this morning, I was reading in the paper, there was this guy. He happens to have been from Vero Beach, Florida. I don't know how he ended up in Jacksonville. He's a white guy. There was a group of black kids in a car. I don't know what was said. There was an altercation. He claims that he was in fear of his life. Anyway, he started shooting at the car, and they drove off. He killed a young boy. And he's going to jail now for the remainder. He's got a minimum of 60 years, they just declared. But I was crying this morning because the mother, this black lady, she was in the court and she said, this boy was precious to us and he was the joy of our household. But I have to forgive you, and I do forgive you. And she forgave the man. That takes Jesus to do something like that. Were you able, in your heart, to forgive the guys that shot you?
Oh, definitely. I was able.
How? How did you do that?
Because I was forgiven. I was given another opportunity. I was my life was spared, you know. And I mean, to be honest, if I had the choice, I would have preferred, you know, when I had that out of body experience, to go off or go on to wherever I was going. But someone had a plan stronger than what my plan was, and it was to come back and to talk to young kids and talk to people about what I experienced, so that my life wouldn't be a life in vain.
Now, how did that happen? You ended up traveling around the world for what, 10 years, speaking to different youth groups, and you were actually paid for that. How did that happen?
Well, there was a lady, her name is Beverly Pollard. She runs a nonprofit organization. It's called the Warren UMADOP, which is the Urban Minority Alcohol and Drug Abuse Outreach Program in Warren, Ohio. And she wanted me to speak to a youth group that she had at the Juvenile Justice Center. So I obliged her. I went and spoke to this group, and it was about 8 young kids, and they were just amazed at, you know, what I talked about and what I described. And I told them about being in shootouts and having bullets whiz past my ear like mosquitoes, and having all these close calls, and each close call made me feel more and more invincible. And I let them know that I really wasn't invincible, and that they weren't invincible, and they were so captivated that she asked me to volunteer with her agency. And I did that for about maybe 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks she actually hired me on as a permanent staff. I traveled around and I got trainings in self-esteem, conflict resolution, anger management, which were tools to help me better, you know, present myself, or have something that's, you know, practical that I can talk about that these kids needed, which was self-esteem and conflict resolution. Because a lot of us, me included at the time, had a false sense of self-esteem. We thought our self-esteem was about what we drove, what we wore, our clothes, jewelry, and things. And it's really not. Self-esteem is the key word, is self. It's about how much you love yourself. And once you love yourself, you can love other people. You can't give away what you don't have. And I had to learn that. And because of that agency, I was able to learn that.
And that was a 10-good-year run. I mean, you're flying around the world, speaking and changing lives, investing in other people's lives. He took a bullet in his arm, then he took a bullet in his hip, went through his, it went through your spleen, went through your
my stomach,
my stomach, appendix,
part of my small intestine.
Small intestine,
my bladder.
Your bladder. He survived that. He was dead for 7 minutes, had a near-death experience. He was a gang member prior to that. It changed his life. Then he's traveling around the country for 10 years, speaking at different groups and changing the lives of young people.
And I don't take credit for any of the good things that ever happened in my life. You know, before that, before my near-death experience, I had been working and trying to control my life, and everything, and every decision I ever made, it was the wrong decision. Everything I tried to force happen always went wrong. So I never was good at controlling or directing my life. But after I had my near-death experience, once I turned those situations over to God and just got out of the way, God was able to make me look good. And a lot of people say, wow, you were working for a congressman. Oh, you helped so many kids. And really, I don't deserve credit for any of those things. You know, it was just an example of me getting out of the way and allowing God to take control of my life and guide my life, and it made me look good.
I like that, getting out of the way and letting God.
Yeah.